and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to bring you along as I harvest all of my sweet corn. Corn is one of those crops that I highly recommend you try growing yourself. Once it's harvested, it loses a lot of its sugar because it converts over to carbs. So the corn that you buy in the grocery store has lost a lot of its sweetness. By growing my own corn, I get to harvest it when it's at its peak sweetness and enjoy all of that sugary flavor. There are two indicators that will let you know if that cob of corn is ready to harvest. And this applies to any corn variety, no matter which one you're growing. My name is Jara. I teach people how to garden, grow food, raise backyard chickens, and keep bees. So grab a basket and let's harvest. In today's video, I am already harvesting my crop, but if you want more information on how to grow corn from seed and take care of the plants so you can get to a nice harvest, I definitely have a YouTube video tutorial, so go check that out. Let's talk about the anatomy of the corn a little bit because that explains how it pollinates, and will also explain some of the first indicators that the cob is ready to be harvested. At the top here, we have the tassel, because they kind of look tassel-y, don't they? This is where all the pollen is located. Corn is wind pollinated, so as the wind pushes these plants, the tassels will shake and it releases some of that pollen. On a dry, clear day, I can actually see some of that pollen floating around. The pollen will flow all around these plants and then land on these silks. This part right here is the silks. It literally looks like a bunch of little threads at the very top of the ear of corn. As the pollen floats around, it will land and touch one piece of the silk, which is attached to one kernel that will form on this cob of corn. If the individual piece of this silk doesn't get pollinated, then the spot where it connects on the cob where the kernel would form doesn't form. So you basically have a gap on your cob of corn. So if you notice that you harvest your cobs of corn and there's lots of gaps, or it's not fully full of kernels, then you probably have a pollination issue, or maybe you didn't grow enough corn, because you should grow a nice thick block of corn so that there's enough pollen floating around to properly pollinate everything. A good indicator that the cob might be ready for harvest is that the silks here are very dried out. This one is kind of getting there, but it's not as dried out as this one, for example. The final indicator that this cob of corn is ready to harvest is open it up just a little bit, just to see how formed the kernels are. And then you're going to take your finger and you're going to pinch one of the kernels. I don't know if you guys could see that very clearly, but there's like a milky substance. It's white, just like milk. The milky stage is an indicator that this cob of corn is at its peak for sugar content. So you'll want to harvest it right now. When you harvest, just break it off at the stem. And just so you know, once you harvest all the cobs of corn from a stalk, it's not going to produce any more for you. This plant is done. What I really like to do is take all of these stalks, because it's a lot of biomass that is great for composting, or even just laying it on top of the surface of like your garden beds to act as a mulch. This particular variety of corn, by the way, is called Golden Bantam, and it is an heirloom cultivar. If you guys have been following me for some time, you know that I absolutely love growing heirloom varieties because I can save my own seed, and that's really important to me. If you're looking for a good heirloom variety in particular, this Golden Bantam is really great. I do have seeds on my website if you want to grow the same ones. If you're not going to eat your corn right away after harvesting, keep it wrapped up in the stalks. It'll store a little bit better and longer in the fridge if you just keep it wrapped up. But try to eat this as soon as possible, usually within a day or two, because as time goes by, again, the sugar content in here will convert over to carbs and you'll lose a lot of that sweetness. Corn plants in general are pretty on point with being ready at harvest time. Depending on the variety you're growing, some could be ready for harvest as soon as 65 days from seed, or as late as 90 days from seed. So if one is ready for harvest, most likely the majority of them are as well, but sometimes there might be a few that are still kind of behind. Just give them a couple more days to grow. I got quite a harvest. The rest of these should be ready in another day or two. As soon as I'm done harvesting all of this, I'm going to clean this out and plant something new in this spot. If you have a favorite corn variety, let me know in the comments below. I prefer the super sweet types, so if you have a variety that you really like, let me know about it, because I'd love to try growing it next season. I hope you learned something new about growing corn. Thank you for watching.